Hello, my gorgeous familia. Let me first off just say thank you, because recording this podcast, sharing this information with you, connecting with so many of you has been such a gift in my life. And speaking of that, I just set up a Patreon. So if you're loving this and if you're following along, if you're learning, if you're sharing, if you're growing with me, I would love if you showed the love. You can visit patreon.com/dropitlikeitsdoc. Show me a little love. Fun thing is, this is just the beginning. So there's about to be some exclusive content on there. So if you are interested in that as well, check it out. And regardless, I love you and I so appreciate you. So thanks for being on this journey with me. We going up. What up, fam? I am Dr. De Luna and you are listening to Drop It Like It's Doc podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about why you are bloated and why it's not normal. All right, my sweet familia. Let me just say that half the things that you have been told are normal are actually not. They're just so common that people say, oh yeah, me too, that's normal, don't worry about it. But for me, I'm like, huh? That's not normal. And let me just paint you a little picture of little baby Ashley. So I've always been kind of a small human. I was born this way. I'm so sorry if it offends you. I was born this way, okay? However, while I've been a small human, this little tummy, I would have never worn a crop top. Most of my life, never wore crop tops. You know why? Because I looked like I was pregnant. I was a 6-year-old and looked like I was pregnant. That continued throughout my life. I was a ballerina. I'd be in a little leotard looking like a little tomato. It's sad. And then I became a yoga teacher. What do yoga teachers wear? Nothing. We're naked. We are naked in front of the class, especially if you teach hot yoga. You're basically in booty shorts, a little strappy bra, and that's it. So what's exposed? The tummy. And for me, I used to be so bloated, and it was something that would make me really upset. And actually, if I'm not even gonna call her name out, but someone from my middle school would always comment on it, and know that your voice is still in the back of my head. If you're watching this and you're like, is that me? I used to talk about her tummy. It's you. I still hear your voice in the back of my head sometimes, so thank you. Trauma runs deep. But anyway, I have clearly moved past that. And for me, for a while, because it was the norm, right? It was something that I experienced from when I was a kid up until maybe 7 years ago. I'm in my 30s now. It was normal for me, but it wasn't healthy. It was not healthy at all. And for me, a lot of my health issues came from my gut. So let's talk about some of the ways that bloating can present in you and what it might mean, because your body is always talking to you. These things aren't happening at random. They are truly pointing to something in your body. So first off, depending on where in your belly is bloating and the timing of the day that it's bloating can tell you a lot. If you wake up in the morning and your belly is flat and you're like, damn, I look sexy, and then you eat breakfast and you bloat up like a little balloon, your body is reacting to something that you ate, and it might not be the food. It could be truly not the food. And let me also just say that most of the time, it's not the food that is the issue, it's the digestive piece that is the issue. Because your body evolved eating food. And yes, I know. The food that we eat is basically poison. However, for the most part, your body knows how to eat, okay? But most of us don't slow down around mealtime. What do you do when you're eating? Truly sit there and ask yourself, what do you do when you're eating? Are you even mentally there? You're physically sitting in front of the plate. Maybe you're eating while you're driving. Maybe you're eating while scrolling on your phone. Maybe you're eating while watching the news. Also, just stop watching the news. It's so bad for your gut because of your mental health. But whatever you're doing, if you are not focused on the process of digestion, your nervous system is going to be in a far off land, processing whatever it is that's circling around in your little monkey brain. But you know what? Your nervous system is actually really good at digesting food, because your parasympathetic nervous system tells your entire body to get ready for digestion. It helps your body release digestive enzymes. It makes things churn. It makes things move. But again, if you're not in the parasympathetic state, if you're not even salivating when you're eating your food, you don't have any digestive enzymes in your body. You might have some, but you don't have enough to break down your food. What happens if you don't break down your food? There's a whole bunch of buggies inside of you that are so excited about this because they gon' feast. And when they feast, you bloat. Because these microbes, they create a lot of gas. They do. They ferment these substances in your body and you bloat. So if you have bloating in your upper tummy, that's usually something going on with your upper digestion. It could be that you don't have enough stomach acid. It could be that you didn't even chew. Let me just stop and say that if you are bloated at all, just chew. Just try chewing. See what it does. It's gonna change your life. I promise you. If you see food in your poop, at this point of the podcast, at this point of our relationship, I hope that you are inspecting everything that comes out of your body because it tells you a lot. And if you see undigested food outside of corn, because corn's like really not even a food, it just passes through you. Anyway, if you see undigested carrots and greens, and if you could tell the meal that came out of you, homie, that's not your gut's fault. It's yours. You have to chew. You should be able to chew so well that if you open your mouth, the person that you're sharing a meal with has no idea what that was other than the pigment, because you can't chew away the pigment. So, step one, if you are bloated, could absolutely be because you're not chewing, because your nervous system is in a never, never land and it's not there to digest your food. So you're feeding microbes. And we have an incredible amount of microbes in our body. We are friends with these microbes. Some of them we're not friends with, but most of them, we're cool with them. We want them in there. They're helping us out. They live in your colon, which is the last part of your digestive system where you poop. Some of you are bloated because you are literally full of shit. I'm serious. That's why some of you are bloated, because you have to poop. Some of you think pooping once a day is even enough. It's not. You have to poop like 2-3 times a day. For every meal that goes in, there should be something coming out, and not immediately. You shouldn't be flushing it out. If you eat something, then your body immediately flushes it. It means that it didn't like what you ate. Just other fun fact for you today. But you should be able to eat and not feel bloated. And if you are someone whose lower belly is always distended and it just feels full and like a rock, it's literally because there's poop in there. So that could be a big part of this. And what else happens when you're constipated is that you just have so much pressure in your gut that you have these circular muscles called sphincters. If you don't know that word, listen to the What's in Your Guts episode because we go all into sphincters. But you have a sphincter between your small intestine and your large intestine. Remember, all the bacteria is in your large intestine. So if there's a lot of pressure in your colon, that little sphincter is gonna open on up and things are gonna start moving backwards. Ew. Ew. Things move backwards. That's where your appendix is. And you know, you need your appendix, okay? You actually need it. But if things start to back up, the little microbes can start to crawl their way from the colon into the small intestine. And the small intestine is where a lot of your digestion occurs. It's right after your tummy. So if you didn't chew your food, if you didn't make enough stomach acid, if you didn't break down your food by the time it hits the small intestine, and then if you're constipated and your bacteria are just swimming upstream, they're truly gonna have a feast and you are going to be burping and farting. If you are burping, know that usually there's some fermentation happening in your upper gut. If you're farting, it's usually lower. The smell can even tell you some stuff about it. But that is something that I see all the time bloating wise. And truly, the first piece that I talked about, if you're eating and you get bloated, that is related to not digesting well, but sometimes people with constipation can just be bloated all the time again because you're full of shit and because the microbes are going backwards. So that could be a big thing to investigate with you. And again, it's probably not the food. It's probably the way that you are digesting it. If you are someone that is anxious all the time, which, what's up? I get anxious a lot. Know that it's gonna be hard for you to digest your food. So you always wanna be grounded. You always wanna feel yourself salivating. If you're not salivating, your stomach's not releasing hydrochloric acid, your small intestine isn't doing its job, your liver didn't release bile. It's a whole process. Other reasons why you might be bloated. You can have an infection in your gut. You could. All those microbes, remember how I said we want some of them in there? Sometimes we don't want ones in there. So have you ever been to a country where you get an unbelievable amount of food poisoning and then just fly back to the US and be like, oh, I'm good, it's gone? It's not gone. It's actually still inside of your gut. I was that person. I can't even tell you how sick I got in Thailand when I was there, however many years ago. Thought I was gonna die. It was an issue. I did nothing about this illness. I just took some activated charcoal, threw up and shit myself back to life, flew back to the US, and I was still bloated. Wonder why? Because the critter was still inside of me. If you want more info on that, listen to the parasite episodes. Some other reasons why you may be bloated. There's a lot of organs in here. There's quite a few of them. So if you have bloating just on one side or in one area, that's more of like a mass situation. you're gonna wanna get that checked out by your doctor. Truly, you would be surprised how many things can grow inside of you. Something that a lot of individuals with wombs get are different growths inside of the wombs. You can get different types of, they're called, in the muscular layer, myometria. That's just a way that you can get a little mass in there. You could get uterine fibroids. You can get all sorts of stagnation in there. And for those of you that bleed, you know that it's normal to get a little bloated before you bleed. And that's because there's so much blood and energy and things flowing to that area for shedding. That is normal. A little bit of bloating around your period is normal. So I don't want you to think it's abnormal. But if you notice that same bloating outside of the premenstrual phase and throughout your cycle, it could be that there's something else going on in your womb. So your womb is right here. Your bladder's on top of it, your colon's around it. So there's a lot of stuff packed on top of one another. So if you get pain in your womb outside of menstrual time, that's something I would definitely check out. Especially if you have any type of irregular bleeding, that is something that you 1,000,000,000% need to bring up to your doctor, because they're probably gonna stick a little scope up your vagina to look at your uterus with an ultrasound. It's really easy, painless, worth it. Your body is always worth it. So that could be another reason why you are bloated. Other types of reproductive concerns, say you have an ovarian cyst. That could be one side. Not trying to throw the cancer word out there, but this is a very real thing. I'm a doctor, right? I have to tell you all the things that could be happening. If you have a one-sided mass or one-sided pressure, you've got ovaries right here. You gotta check that out. Ovarian cysts are really common, and a lot of the times they're not an issue, but sometimes they are an issue. Also, uterine cancer is a thing. I'm definitely not trying to scare you, but if you're like, I bleed at random, my lower belly hurts, I feel sick, I don't feel like myself, I'm getting pale, homie, go get checked out. Yes, you can, heal yourself from a lot of different things, but still, I'm a really big fan of having a doctor on board. And if your doctor doesn't believe in gut health and doesn't believe in dysbiosis and that kind of a thing, then work with a functional medicine provider, because they'll be able to help you. Other reasons why you could be bloated outside of not chewing well and outside of your reproductive system being off can be any of your other organs in here being upset. So if you're bloated all the time, and if it's not necessarily to do with when you're eating, it could be that you just have low-grade inflammation in your gut all the time that is independent of what you're eating. And that would be more so of a microbial imbalance. But what if your pancreas just isn't doing its job? Your pancreas releases a lot of enzymes. Then you're always going to have an issue with digestion. Some people bloat when they drink water, and that's usually a severe microbial imbalance. So if you're getting gas on either end, I want you to think fermentation, the beautiful fermentation, which is almost always from a microbe. And again, this could all truly be because you're just not chewing your food. Know that your body is always talking to you. So if you notice anything that is just really abnormal for you, and if it doesn't go away, you need to get that checked out. Imaging is a beautiful way that we could take a look at what is going on inside of the body, but you all know this. I am a huge fan of taking a look at your poop, because that tells you exactly what is going on inside of your gut. And I'm not saying to get a typical test that you would get from your GP, which is usually just a standard stool test that looks at 3 things. I'm talking about comprehensive testing that will tell you what your digestive enzymes are doing. Because if you're low in, let's say, stomach acid, that's going to impact it. If you're low in bile, that's going to impact it. If you're low in any of your pancreatic enzymes, that's going to impact it. And treatment is different based on what you're finding. It's also going to tell you what the microbial imbalance is in your gut, because if you've done anything that has helped. So for instance, if you're like, Dr. De Luna, I am obsessed with talking about worms. I did a parasite cleanse and I actually felt better and I wasn't bloated for the first time in years. No, it's probably microbial, right? Or vice versa. If you're like, oh, I ate soup for a week and I wasn't bloated. It's probably because the soup isn't something that you gotta chew, right? So it's probably coming down to you and the way that you're showing up in your body. The stool test will also show if there is some type of actual creature that you need to kill, like me when I traveled to Southeast Asia and got the worst food poisoning of my life. It would show what creature I carried home with me back to the United States of America. Yes. So bloating really is not normal. Outside of a little bit around your period, it's just not normal. So if you are someone that experiences bloating and think it's normal just because your mom is bloated or your dad farts all the time, it's not normal. And even speaking of that, Producing gas isn't necessarily normal. It's usually a sign of maldigestion. If your farts smell, that's because you didn't break down protein, microbes then fermented them, and then poofed out that little gas. If you're burping stuff up, it's probably because you have low stomach acid. Know that if your doctor told you that any of these issues are because of GERD and gave you a proton pump inhibitor, that is actually not going to fix the problem. It's actually going to make it much worse. And I'm a big fan of root cause everything because your body, once again, is brilliant. So none of this is random. So to recap, the big places that you need to look if you're consistently bloated are your gut, your nervous system, and your reproductive system. From your gut, it all starts with digestion. Are you in a place to digest your food? Or are you mentally watching the news, freaking out about something that's happening in the Middle East? You're not gonna be able to digest your food then. If you're eating while you're driving, know that no matter what, you're going to be bloated. You need to be eating when you are actually in the parasympathetic state, which is why I'm a huge fan of vagal nerve exercises, humming, singing, gargling, gagging, deep belly breathing, all of it. And if you need help with digestive enzymes, or if you need help with digestive bitters, that can be really, really helpful. Outside of that, you need to be mindful that you don't have microbial overgrowth. You might have microbial overgrowth. If it's because of constipation, you gotta poop. You gotta clear things out. If it's because you got food poisoning, you gotta kill the bug. If you take probiotics and get bloated, or if you get prebiotics and get bloated, it's because of that microbial issue. So that's absolutely something to look at. Or you could do a stool test and get the entire, picture painted for you in precise data. Last thing you need to look at is reproductive system. If it's one side, think ovary. If it's right in the middle low, think uterus. If it's around your period, you're cool. If you're bleeding irregularly throughout the month, not cool. You need to check that out. Those are most of them, my friends. I'm sure there's other reasons why you could be bloated, but I would say start there. Always start there. And if you never used to be bloated and then started to get bloated, that's definitely not your normal, right? But if you were just a little bloated baby like me, work on your gut health, work on your nervous system, and then you can wear cute crop tops. Yay! Because truly, I used to plan when I would teach yoga based around when I would eat because I would bloat up. Don't even tell me about hummus. I was vegan at the time. I used to eat boatloads of hummus. What makes you bloated? Hummus. Well, if you're me, that is. We'll save that for another time. So if you want to wear crop tops, work on your bloat, okay? I love you all so much. I hope that you stop farting after this episode. And I'm here for ya. Thanks for tuning in. Feel free to share this with your dad who farts all the time, who thinks it's normal, and be like, Daddy, you're not digesting your food. Dr. DeLuna said so. See you soon.